Thank you for viewing this webinar about reporting and investigating potentially serious incidents. If you have questions about occupational health and safety, OH&S, call the Alberta OH&S Contact Centre at 1-866-415-8690. If you are in Edmonton or surrounding area, call 780-415-8690. If you have questions about this webinar, email lbr.ohnsfeedback@gov.ab.ca. After watching this webinar, please take a moment to fill out the short survey and give us your feedback. The link to the survey is on the YouTube page below the subscribe button. Before we begin, we have a disclaimer and copyright notice that we need to bring to your attention. We have done our best to ensure that the information in this webinar is accurate and up to date. However, if there is any discrepancy between this webinar and the Occupational Health and Safety OH&S legislation, the legislation is correct. I will give you a few moments to read the copyright notice. This webinar will cover the following topics: the difference between a potentially serious incident and other reportable incidents, how to report a potentially serious incident using the OH&S Online Incident Reporting Service, how OH&S uses potentially serious incident information. The OH&S Act requires reporting and investigating of the following: serious injuries, illnesses or incidents, radiation overexposure, incidents at a mine or mine site, and potentially serious incidents. The prime contractor, or if there is no prime contractor, the employer, is responsible for reporting these incidents directly to Alberta OH&S. The type of incident determines how they are reported. The OH&S Act gives two criteria that define a reportable potentially serious incident. These are that the incident had a likelihood of causing a serious injury or illness, and there is reasonable cause to believe that corrective action may be needed to prevent reoccurrence. A potentially serious incident does not require an injury to occur and is not limited to workers. If someone who isn't a worker is involved, it's a potentially serious incident if it results from work activity at the worksite, or could have happened to a worker. For example, a pedestrian has ignored the posted signs and is walking in an area where the sidewalk is closed for construction. There is a hole where a manhole cover is missing and no barriers placed around the open sewer. The pedestrian doesn't notice the hole and falls in, but it isn't a serious injury. This is a potentially serious incident because it could have just as easily happened to a worker. Another example: workers set up a fence surrounding a worksite. After hours, a gust of wind blows the fence onto the adjacent sidewalk. No persons were injured. Reinforced posts have been installed on the fence to prevent reoccurrence. A non-worker had the potential to be seriously injured from the fencing, from a work activity at the worksite. Potentially serious incidents must be reported to OH&S. These incidents are reported through the Online Incident Reporting Service. You are not required to go through the OH&S Contact Centre. Potentially serious incidents are reportable upon completion of the investigation. When determining whether an incident is a potentially serious incident, it helps to consider the actual circumstances of the incident. For example, the person, place, time, and work practices being followed, the hazards present at the time of the incident, and the controls in place at the time of the incident. Ask the following questions: was the incident likely to cause a serious injury or illness? If no, potentially serious incident reporting is not necessary. If yes, is corrective action needed to prevent a reoccurrence? If no, your incident does not need to be reported as a potentially serious incident. If yes, potentially serious incident reporting is necessary. If you are unsure, the OH&S Online Incident Reporting Service will help you determine if the incident is a potentially serious incident. Consider the following incident, which is an example of a potentially serious incident. A worker wearing a hard hat is struck by a falling object and recovers without injury. If the worker had been in a slightly different position, they may have experienced a serious injury. Was the incident likely to cause a serious injury or illness? Were appropriate controls in place? Did the controls fail? Is corrective action needed to prevent a reoccurrence? Here's a similar situation that is an example of a non-potentially serious incident. Workers are working overhead on a platform. There is a netting in place to catch falling objects. A worker drops a hammer and it falls into the netting. Was the incident likely to cause a serious injury or illness? Were appropriate controls in place? Did the controls fail? Is corrective action needed to prevent a reoccurrence? For more examples, read the OH&S Bulletin Incident Reporting and Investigation, available online on the OH&S Resource Portal. For potentially serious incidents, you don't need to report to OH&S until you've completed an investigation into the incident. To meet their obligations under the OH&S Act, a prime contractor or employer must carry out an investigation of the incident, prepare a report about the investigation, provide a copy of the report to OH&S through the OH&S Online Incident Reporting Service and to the Health and Safety Committee, HSC, or Health and Safety Representative, HS Representative, if applicable. If there is no committee or representative, you must make the report available to your workers. Keep a copy of the report for at least 2 years after the potentially serious incident. Your investigation report will need to include the time, place, and nature of the incident, and outline your investigation findings, including any corrective actions taken. To submit an online report, you will need to create a alberta.ca account for organizations. You may already have one if you use other Alberta government online business services. Go to alberta.ca/alberta-ca-account-for-organizations for more information. Once you have submitted your report online, you will be provided a reference number. When a potentially serious incident is reported to OH&S, it will be triaged based on strategic and operational priorities. OH&S may contact the prime contractor or employer if the potentially serious incident submission appears to be incomplete. For instance, details are missing or unclear. OH&S uses information collected from potentially serious incident reports to identify trends, which can then be used to form the basis for future strategic priorities, proactive inspection work, policy changes, potential research, and resource development. As potentially serious incident data is collected, OH&S summarizes the information to identify such things as who is reporting, industry and occupational trends, and potentially serious incident types and sources. In summary, potentially serious incidents must meet 2 criteria. The incident had a likelihood of causing a serious injury or illness, and there is reasonable cause to believe that corrective action may be needed to prevent reoccurrence. Investigate the potentially serious incident and prepare an investigation report before notifying OH&S. Submit the investigation report to OH&S using the OH&S Online Incident Reporting Service. Provide a copy of the investigation report to the Health and Safety Committee or Health and Safety Representative or workers, if applicable. Thank you for viewing this webinar. If you have any questions about the potentially serious incidents, call the OH&S Contact Center at 1-866-415-8690. In Edmonton and surrounding area, call 780-415-8690. Thank you.